And today with you here is myself, I'm Ella, and with my colleague, Dina. What is communication? So
we decided that communication can be defined by how people convey information, how we get the information across to and from each other. And we're trying to understand the meaning of that message, and it's a two-way process. Communication is not just one way. Somebody's always listening to what we're saying, so we want to remember that. And sometimes we are the listener. So, and how we do communicate, it's the key to clear expression, and clear expression matters. Communication can be very complicated. We communicate with our words, and other types of communication, which we'll talk about today. And communication is the key to building a strong relationship. And relationships take time, whether you're volunteering with someone at the beginning when you first meet them, and as you get to know them a little bit more. It's a bit of a process, and through that is different levels of communication. And communication can also help you take care of your own needs and be aware of the needs of the person or agency that you're volunteering with. And communication skills we are not born with. They're skills that we have to learn. So that's what we're trying to do a little bit today, just to improve on the learnings of our communication skills. Because a lot of it is learned through trial and error. We've all had our awkward moments, and hopefully sessions like this, we could have a few less of them.
Communication is about connection, right? So that is true. If you talk to someone and then there is no communication, then you're telling the person what to do. This is not two-way process. It's just telling is one way, one direction, right? So communication requires both ways. So actually that has a deeper meaning to communication. A lot of times we say communication is about words to express what the meaning, the message. But Susanna talks about feeling. Okay, so that brings another layer of complexity to communication, your words and your feeling. Okay, just bear that in mind. So here is an interactive activity. You find a partner. Okay, I don't mind now whether you know the person or not. Okay, because eventually you will move on. Okay, so find a partner, communicate. I only ask you to communicate two things: joy, happiness, joy, or sadness. Okay, you can choose either. And then in any way you can think of. So there are a lot of ways of conveying the message, and this is communication, right? So, and then let's see what that is. Verbal, the simpler thing, when we want to communicate, Dixon did say sometimes people have different meaning, being sarcastic, being ironic, you can be that. But if you want to be a good communicator, you want to skip all those. You're not we don't want to be bureaucrats. We don't want to be politicians. So we want to be straight. If you want to tell someone something, be straight. I'm happy. I'm sad. So that is the easiest way, words. It's like non-verbal thing, a lot of non-verbal. So we talked about it earlier, and Dina mentioned it. How you feel, how you show it. They need to be consistent. If they're not, so I'm very sad. It doesn't mean anything. You're smiling, but you say you're sad. So kind of people would guess, and you make people double guess. You are not a good communicator if you want to convey a message. So facial expression, body languages, gesture, showing a hand gesture, emoji, right? People use a lot of emoji. Yeah. When you have so many emojis representing everything. Oh, emojis are emojis. They're setting, there's so many I don't even know what they are. Right? Texting and using mobile devices. So that is also a way of communication. So especially for people with disabilities, and then if they don't speak clearly or they cannot hear, they probably would communicate with texting. So in a way, you can write things down. So there are all different types of communication. Oh, another game here. Look at that. So we talk quite a bit about nonverbal communication and people's their gesture, their position, their body, then what language they're telling you. So what are they communicating here? The hands in the pocket, the head looking up. So the person is not like timid or sad. How about this person? Thinking. Yeah? How about this one? Let's see. Flirting. So do you see? Yes, but don't laugh at that, because a lot of the pictures and the movies, they use this kind of thing to elicit your thought. Because how many love stories you see when the two people start kissing, then the leg of the lady, the girl would come up like that. So when you see that, immediately you think, oh, they're flirting. They're having some romantic, activity there. How about this one, the middle one? The message is, I'm reading a book. So what does it tell you?
Do not disturb me.
Yes, yes. Oh, I don't want to talk to you. Right? The next one. Now, this one is crossing the arms. Maybe not defensive. I wouldn't call this defensive, because you see, but that might be, it's just different. Look at the head, it's a little bit tilted. Might be defensive. Defensive in a way is, I would call it the aggressive defensive. Right? The head is up. It is not looking down and then trying to shy away. But the head is up, so it's like a challenging position, right? Okay, the second one from the other side, both hands up. Explaining, offering. Yep, that's good, both hands. Explaining this. And the last one, how about one hand up? Telling other people to do things. Your mom will say, oh, go and take the dishes to the kitchen. One hand. Would the mom say that? No, right? So kind of from the different body posture, some of the hand gesture, you can guess. So even from that, but saying all that is not one rule for everything. It can be this, it can be that. So sometimes we don't want to be judgmental. We don't want to make judgment. Communication is important after you've learned this, and then you want to emphasize your communication. Here, of course, if you can understand other people, what they communicate to you is useful. But we want to kind of talk about the skills of becoming a good communicator.
And it's really important to put one message to the person that you're communicating with, right? Whether you're the receiver of that communication or the one that you're wanting to respond or to deliver a message. If you deliver in one way with your body language and the other areas that we'll talk about, it's just important so that it's not confusing for the listener.
So just a recap of what we have just talked about, and some of you already gave us a lot of the information. So it is, like I said, they are not rocket science. They're all common things that we do every day. But if you pay special attention to that, you can make that more effective. That is the difference between someone who talks, a communicator, and a good communicator. Okay, so that is the thing. I want to talk about conversation skills first. Okay, so conversation skill is the skills you use in conversation. We all know what conversation is, right? You don't need me to define that for you. So let us do a game here. So we want to have a conversation with someone who you didn't talk to just now, you didn't pair it up with, so a different person. And then you will have a conversation with opening, middle, and end to complete a conversation. Conversation is something you want to do as a whole set, to have a start and a middle at the end. If you start and you talk about it and you just left, there's no ending. People just left there, don't know, oh, is she coming back to talk to me again? Okay. So the ending is very simple, is, oh, thank you. Bye, I got something else to do. And then I'll talk to you next time, or something like that. So kind of that is the conversation. And casual dialogue, so very casual. And purpose is to extend exchange of words. So you see someone you don't know, and you get to that, look each other. Okay, walk away. That is no conversation. Okay, say hi. And say hi. 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 Hi.
That feels like a computer game.
Exactly.
Where the AI is stuck.
Right? If that is no exchange of words, it just say hi, hi. How are you? Fine. And you? Fine. that is no conversation. So the conversation, the purpose is to extend the words in whatever way. And the goal is to better understand the person, earn trust, and relay a message. But sometimes there may be no, just to, exchange some information, or sometimes just say, being, left alone, with that. So here it's just kind of the conversation skill. Sometimes you, I think Alan actually give a very good side of it. Sometimes you just, when you do casual things, and because the people ask you, and you don't know them really well, they say, hey, how are you doing? You say, fine. But in fact, you were not feeling well. What would you say? Oh, I'm not feeling well. Or you wouldn't say that because it's a casual acquaintance, right? You would say fine. So sometimes for the conversation skill, that is actually a skill, and then to do that. So just bear that in mind. And then what's the difference between a conversation skill, which is, I have to say, is a good skill to have. I'm not saying maintaining a casual conversation is easy, because right now you haven't done the more challenging one. If you meet someone who never responds and you are told to engage the person for 3 minutes by you doing a monologue, that might be quite difficult, right? So if you keep asking and the person say, yeah, no, fine, okay, that's not a lot of fun in doing that. So, kind of you show the interest, and then how to get the interest from another person. So sometimes while you're doing something, maybe you want to talk to someone with some issues, and you want to convey a message, or you want to see someone wants to tell you something, then you would use active listening. So it's a little bit different from a casual conversation.
Do you need to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? I'm here to listen. Can I get you some help? Those are the kinds of things that you want to make sure that if I'm having a rough day or somebody's saying something sad, you want to feel that with them for a bit and understand again your body language and theirs. Like I'm having a rough day. Again, how do you respond with your body language, your tone of voice, your eye contact, and sometimes with venting, I just need to talk. I need to tell you what happened today. And if I go on and on and on and on and on and on, it gets hard to listen to me going on and on and on, but it's really, really important. And then at the end, pick up on that, or say again, or, sorry, you're having a rough day, whatever it is you think is the right thing to say. But we all need to vent at some point. We all have those people hopefully in our lives that we can vent at, and sometimes as volunteers, we're the person. And if you can allow that, your person you're supporting or the agency you're supporting to vent or to convey a message that isn't always easy to hear, just it's important to be heard. And then again, if I go on and I vent some more and paraphrasing it, what I'm hearing is this. Is that what you're saying? And I'm sorry, it must be hard. Something that says that you're listening, you understand what I'm saying. I'm not just talking to the wall. I'm talking to somebody who actually makes me feel like I'm valued and heard, and that my feelings matter. And you can suggest suggestions on how to make a person feel better, or options that you have. If you're careful in how you're doing that, you want to, again, if you're representing an agency or you've got rules around you want to be careful doing that. But make suggestions, and if I still say I'm choosing to have a bad day, you kind of have to respect that, and I hope tomorrow you have a better day. Just something that allows me that choice, and then you kind of move on to the next thing, and I hope that tomorrow I'll either have a better day or make a better decision to have a better day.
That is a situation you might come into quite often. Not even only at the volunteer place, but maybe at your own life, at workplace. You try to kind of be friendly with someone, and then the person just didn't respond or didn't give you any reaction. I think it is you need to handle this case by case and see whether, number one is, must you interact with this person? If there is no need and you don't care, why bother, right? But some people, they want to be friendly to everyone, and that is okay, personal choice. But on the other hand, if there's someone you need to work with, or work for, or work together, you wouldn't let that happen, because it is not, it's quite awkward. And so in that case, you only can show your friendliness from your side, because you can modify your own behavior, you cannot modify other people's behavior. Then, if you get to the point that you know the person a bit more, you understand why is this person so shy, or just looking down, or maybe the person has a language problem, doesn't understand what you are saying, right? Maybe the person, there are a lot of a variety of reasons to that. And once you know that, then you may be able to resolve it. Or simply, if your job is to support the individual in the activities, and the person doesn't want to have any conversation, doesn't want to talk, respect that.
Respect it.
Respect it.
Okay.
Yes, if they choose to do that, and one day they will come and want to talk to you. And will that day come very fast or late? We don't know. Maybe not for a long time. The important thing here is you realize what your purpose there. But if your purpose, say for instance, when you grow up, you become a therapist, and you talk to someone, a counselor. So someone come and they don't talk. Then you would have different skills to, motivate the person to talk. But if really at the end the person doesn't want to talk and just come and pay you for the fee, why not? That is not true, because you still need to do your job, right? So it all depends on what your role you're playing, and then when you come into a volunteer position, you need to look at that.
I think a lot of it too is building up trust with the people or person that you're supporting. So if I don't want to talk today, and that may make it very difficult for you, but if you can respect that, then maybe tomorrow I will. Well, she isn't going to bug me about that, or he isn't going to bug me about that. Maybe they're okay. And over time, I might start wanting to talk.
Yeah, sometimes they want to trust you before they want to talk to you.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. So using active listening skill may build that trust, right? So you may not have the response or reaction you want immediately, but if you're practicing this, you observe a lot more already. Then you can, sometimes intuitively, you would feel that, oh, the person is not in a good mood today. Maybe I don't want to try to talk to the person so much, or try to make the person talk. But if the person is in a good mood, then maybe you can push the envelope a little bit. That cannot be done without knowing the person you're supporting or you're working with. So you need that. If you practice that, and sometimes you also, paraphrasing all this, is that they are suggested skills that you can use. And the purpose is so that you can have active listening to understand the other person better. So that is no one fixed rule with eye contact. In some culture, eye contact is not polite. Like staring at people. And how long, even you make eye contact, how long you stare? Right? It's not a contest of, looking at people. I think is whatever you do, whatever makes you comfortable. And also respect the other person if you know them, and make them comfortable. You wouldn't use eye contact as a gauge for whether people like you or not, or if you do it that way, then you're putting yourself in a difficult position, right? And then I always feel that personally, I just professionally, I work with a lot of people with autism. So I've seen that people with autism, they don't like to make eye contact. And then I've seen parents that forcing the children to make eye contact. So they keep bugging them, eye contact, eye contact, eye contact. I thought, if I hear that word again, I will never want to do eye contact anymore. And so sometimes it's just like that. And you see, if they're interested in something, I want to eat that pack of chips, I'll be eyeing it for a lot. Right? So it kind of, everything takes its time. So I wouldn't say that is you must or you must not, and then you don't if you don't put that layer of meaning on eye contact, it doesn't really matter. You know, I actually heard a person saying, I'm not looking at you, but I'm listening. Right? So will you say that the person is not communicating with you? No, it's not eye contact. But if you use eye contact appropriately, it is a good way, it's a good tool to show people that, hey, I'm listening to you. Hey, I see you. I understand how you feel. Right? So you can use that too. But if you don't know how to use it, don't worry. You know, just, don't do that. Okay, so silence usually, when we think of that, is quite an awkward situation we make people feel. You see someone, and then you want to talk to the person, and then you don't know what to say, and then you want to go, and then you don't want to go, so that's silence. If we do broadcast, silence is deadly.
Dead air.
Dead air. But we're not in broadcast, right? So sometimes in some situations, silence is golden. Remain silent sometimes is a powerful tool. Because number one is, if you're very busy trying to talk, you don't listen well. So if you want to understand the person and you want to use active listening skill, you can't do that because you're very busy talking. And sometimes for sensitive issues, we don't need to respond immediately. You hear something you really don't like, you say, oh, I don't like it. That's the end of conversation. So at that time, you just don't say anything and give yourself time to process information, to have active listening, and you can ask questions or you can express yourself at appropriate time, especially when someone is angry. And if you want to react to someone who's angry, who raised his voice, usually what do? You yell back because you want to cover their voice. So now it will escalate to a higher level. Don't interpret venting by ignoring or negating one's feelings. So very important when we communicate and then you keep silence, and it's better than you say, I don't think that is the right thing to do. I don't think your feeling is justified. I don't think you should feel sad about this by negating other people's feeling. Feeling is very personal. Towards this one thing, one person may feel the different levels of that emotion. And then sometimes even if you are silent, you can use your body language to show that you are listening attentively. Eye contact will be a good one. You know, like maybe just going forward a little bit rather than backing up. So you get that. So kind of you want to show that. So when you do silence, and you want to do it in an effective way as a tool rather than to escape, you don't want to back away. So you would silence and you want to hear more. Okay, so you can couple with your body language or your facial expression, eye contact, gestures, to show that. So sometimes silence is actually good. You know, don't only think about communication is you need to talk all the time.
So empathy versus sympathy. This can be a tough one. Sympathy is the ability to extend compassion towards someone, to say, I'm sorry about your bad day, Nina. But it's also not always, sometimes you react in a way that based on your experience with the emotion. Something has happened, if I've had a bad day in this way, and so you're not really feeling what I'm feeling, you're not really listening to my situation, you're going from your past experience a little bit. Whereas empathy is a little bit different.
So empathy is to put yourself in other people's shoes. So we actually had, Dina and I had a bit of discussion over this. So especially when we say, okay, we feel sorry about something. Is it sympathy? If I say, oh, I feel sorry about this. Do you think just saying that is sympathy? Maybe. But sympathy is a little bit more is you feel a compassion towards another person. You feel sorry, but you're also, it may be a reaction to some situations, some situational event. So we talk about, because that is funny how we discuss over this. And if you have some experience of something, then when you see that in other people, or even you see that in a movie, you feel stronger about it, right? So we talk about is, sometimes we had some negative experience, and then like when you see that in other people, you feel so sad. And you sympathize with, you have sympathy for the other person because of you have exactly gone through the same experience, the situations. It may not be exactly the same, but the feeling is the same. So that is a sympathy. You feel sad. You feel bad about that situation. Empathy is actually to put yourself in another person's shoes. So here is another layer, is to understand why. What's the cause of the event? And then you react to it, and then you understand what they are feeling, and you want to make something better for the person. That is empathy. So here is you have not only a reaction, you also have a response for empathy. So sympathy is a reaction to something what you see. Very simple. Sometimes you see someone crying and you feel sad and you cry. You may not even know why the person is crying. Right? So sometimes that is just an emotion outburst. Do you want to do something to change it? Perhaps not. Because you don't even know why. But empathy is a little bit more in-depth, is you put yourself in that shoes and you understand what's going on. Now, this understanding is very tricky. Do you need to become homeless to understand the suffering and the experience of people who are homeless? Do you need to go through all those disasters to understand the people's feeling? No, sometimes you don't need to do that, right? So this is a lot of the conception we have already in our head. But saying all that, I also want to talk about is sometimes it is from our own preconception, and then we use that speculation to understand other people. I'm not saying, hey, people who are homeless, they want to be homeless. All they say, because some people say, oh, this is a personal choice, you want to be homeless. That I don't believe in that. But sometimes a lot of people there, when we try to see how they're feeling is, we may not fully understand that. But we still want to have that feeling and then see what it comes from, the emotions, and then you want to respond to it. You want to make some changes to help the person. Then you have the empathy. You understand that, wow, it is sometimes difficult to, like you see someone who's on the street, homeless, and then barefoot. And then, unfortunately, I don't know whether you've seen that gentleman in the plastic garbage bag. That's, you've seen him, right? Yes, it's quite sad. But then, why do you feel sad? You sympathize with the person because you know it's cold in winter. You know that it's cold, then you feel sorry for the person. If you empathize with it, is, oh, I also had some one day I didn't remember to bring my jacket, I feel cold as well. Or, oh, the price of the hydro and gas so high, and then I turn the heat off in my room, in my house is so cold. You kind of empathize with it. Then you want to make changes. You would go and ask the fellow, hey, mister, are you okay? Do you need some help? That is empathy. You want to react to it and make some changes. And that is very, like sometimes it is I think it is something people don't have a lot now, or it's not because they don't empathize, but it's a lot of time is people are a little bit scared to do that now. I'll give you an example. Just a few days ago, the sun was in the afternoon. I went home, walked by Best Buy, and this, I saw, even I'm walking along, I saw this guy lying on just against the wall of outside Best Buy. And then I look at him, and then I actually had that impulse to go and say, hey, sir, are you okay? Do you need some help? But I look at him, and then I saw his face a little bit tan, and I thought, oh, then I told myself, oh, he might be enjoying the sun here. Then I kept walking on. Then there is a guy in the vehicle stopped by, when I passed, and then say, oh, asking the guy, are you okay? And the guy said, yeah, I'm okay. At that moment, I told you I was quite regretful. I could have done it. I could have just gave him some, confidence, asking, how are you doing? Do you need some help? But I chose to think that, oh, he's enjoying the sun, and kept walking. Right? So kind of, I have some sympathy in the beginning, and sympathy is a good thing. Don't get it wrong. Sympathy is actually a very natural feeling people have. We have sympathy because we're human, right? But then whether you bring it to a next level to do some action with it, even small action, that would be helpful. What do you think about this statement? Do you agree with it? Empathy feels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. So sympathy is always related with negative experience, right? You sympathize with someone because you are in a really bad situation, right? You feel that, then you feel, like that is something you won't sympathize with someone who's doing really well and have a lot of money and everything you want to be. You don't sympathize with that. Then you sympathize with that is, yeah, they're in a bad situation. You have my sympathy.
If I've had something tragic happen in my life, sympathy is a good place to start. But at some point, I think I need to move on from that place, and I need to, for me, and to grow. So maybe then that becomes empathy after that. And I need to, as the person who's going through that sad, dramatic event, if I get sympathy for the next 10 years, I may stay there. I mean, and I need to take some responsibility for that. But at the same time, if I have people expecting something from me that little bit, and hoping that I will grow a little bit day by day past that horrible thing, then it becomes empathy, and I feel like, again, it's almost like that building trust thing again. You grow into that with that person, those people in your life, and then maybe I'm just going to be okay. Maybe I need to move beyond that moment.
The hierarchies idea, although a lot of us, we are not actively thinking about it or conscientiously thinking, okay, I'm higher up than you, but that is what you imply there with sympathy. However, sympathy is like it's a good thing to start with, but we don't want to end there. We want to grow back, go further with empathy, and empathy is actually a skill. Sympathy is more or less a burst of emotion. And empathy, when you take the emotion, that may become your drive, and you want to kind of help the other person, that becomes empathy. And empathy is a skill. You can start thinking, you feel sorry about someone. A lot of time is like my experience, my story is I walked away. I felt bad, and then I walked away. But then if you take that, and that is a skill that you can train yourself, you can, motivate yourself. And in your volunteer work, that would be the same thing. If you work with the more vulnerable groups, people who are homeless, people with disabilities, children with special needs, seniors, if you go there and your mindset is having a sympathy for them, you are already putting in the hierarchy. I just want to point this one out is you feel bad for the people you're supporting. Sometimes in the beginning, the initial feeling, emotion, but then you need to get out of that so that you can move away from sympathy to a more proactive state of empathy.
Last week you talked about the wording for appropriate words to use in disability and sensitivity training, and we've talked about it where it's not always right to say confined to a wheelchair. And again, if for those that I've not been in a wheelchair before, and I get the empathy, the sympathy, and everything. It's a good place to start. But it's, if the person, for me, for example, without my wheelchair, I'm at home in bed and I don't have a job and I don't get to do anything. For me, my wheelchair is freedom. So you sort of do your best to not go into a situation with feeling that restriction or feeling that judgment or feeling that automatic desire to make it a bad thing. There has been times when my wheelchair's been in my way in my life, and it has been bad moments. But for the most part, it's been freedom. So again, it's about figuring out where that person is coming from and not going in there as assuming beforehand. And as volunteers, you will end up working with a wide variety of diverse populations. Everybody, we talked again last week, we talked about people who are individuals. So every individual comes with a personality, comes with a past, comes with a culture, comes with a language, and that may or may not be one that you know, and comes with expectations for what they want out of that that support that they're going to get from you and the agency or that they are with. And again, a lot of that, it can be difficult if those differences are there, and yet it can also be amazing if we do that active listening thing and ask more questions and get to know people more and tell me more and just listen to what they're looking for, because then you can help that person grow into what they're interested in. But it does take some patience, it takes some listening, it takes some communication. And again, the reason we're here today is to get some tips and strategies to go with those varieties that you're going to come up apart, so that you can and learn from mistakes and admit them, and be aware. Again, if you've got an agency supporting you, if there's something that you think you need to talk about with that agency, do so that you can keep that relationships going with the people you're supporting, the agency that you're supporting. It's just really important that you feel the support, and as long as also giving it. So.
Yeah. And some of you actually joined our lunch presentation on volunteering trends. So we have the manager of Richmond Care, Richmond Gives, and her colleague to come and talk to us about volunteering. And one thing she said, and that I think it really stuck with me, was the agency looking for volunteers, hiring volunteers. They want to, they're not trying to get you to do all the dirty things that they don't want to do. They actually in the mindset of setting up for success. Because your performance, your assistance with their projects, your activities, services, actually is helping their organization. So when they do that, they would want to think, okay, what would be the best duties for this volunteer to do? So you as the volunteer going into the organization, that is what you are thinking. They are trying to assist you and you are helping them. So it is a two-way traffic. It's just not like, oh, I go and volunteer this so that their staff don't need to do this. Sometimes, of course, manpower is an issue, but again, the organization is there to support you, and they should do that, to support their volunteers, to give the services, activities, the programs that they want to deliver. And they are there to support you. So, having with you going in there, and then you want to communicate very clearly, that's why we say volunteers are like employees. So you're not paid for your service, but your role is exactly the same as a staff member and employee of the organization. And yourself thinking like that, the organization will also treat you like that. So coming to the effective communication as a volunteer is know the people you're serving. Okay? So we talk a lot about that. You know, there are also some discussion previously, you know, we don't know, and how do we do this? The person doesn't talk, the person doesn't, you know, like respond. And so how do you get to know them? How do you get to know the people you are serving? So understand the background, their values, the needs, we talk about eye contact. In some culture, eye contact is not a polite thing, so the person may not want to do eye contact. And in some cultures, the eye contacts cannot be made with the opposite sex, right? So we understand that. So why? Why are you not looking at me? But then you're jumping to conclusion there, right? You don't like me. Well, that's not the case. So we need to take time to know a little bit about that, and then you will change your style. Okay, so eye contact is not the most important thing here. And then you might also want to alter the way that you change the way that you communicate. Well, depending if the person has a speech impediment or the person have, so it's very simple. If the person has speech impediment, we have a lot of that. I think you should be able to answer that because it should be part of the disability awareness training. So what skills would you use to communicate with a person with speech impediment? Patience, I like that. That's totally true. Because, like you ask the person something, what's your name? The person respond, okay, you don't understand. What do you do? Sorry, I don't understand. Can you say that again? Then, what do you do next? Yes, sometimes you say, okay, you don't want to tell me, hey, that's it, bye, right? Oh, but sometimes like that, you say, oh, next time, but that may not happen because it is an intrinsic condition of the individual, right? It's not about the mood that they will change. If they have a speech impediment, it will be there. So you probably want to resolve that, if you don't understand, can you write me your name?
Pencil, paper, pull a
Yeah.
device out.
Exactly. Or they use a communication device and they put it out and tell you. Or you can ask a staff member to get that, right? So sometimes you can hear, you hear other people calling the person by that name and then, I heard them call you John, so can I call you John? Yeah, so kind of that. So you will change the way depending on the people you support.
So you also want to do active listening again. You want to, in order to build trust and listen and respect what that person is saying, respect where the agency is coming from and following their rules, and learn more about a person's opinions and feelings and thoughts, and not just try. It can lead to interesting conversations if you put your own in there too, but it's more about what that person, you need to agree to disagree on different things and respect where that person is coming from, because that's who you're supporting. And again, you want to, if people need to talk or that you don't want to interrupt them, you want to just listen. Sometimes that's hard to do, especially if people have speech impediments or different ways of communicating, or if I need to, because not being understood, I need to write down everything that I say. It takes time. Listening takes time, and communicating takes time, and it's important to have that time because that's where the relationships start from, the trust starts from. And you, again, with your body language and your eye contact and all those different ways we've talked about, you want to make sure that you're showing that you are actively listening and interested in what the person is saying.
So we go on to next is another way of having better communication, improve the communication with the people you support is ask questions. Okay, so asking question is good. So, but then, like I said, is we also need to be sensitive about the questions we ask. It all depends on the role of your volunteer position. Sometimes, it is not, we always hear our motto, our rule of thumb of that is, if it is not relevant, we don't ask. So, do we ask people do we ask our members about their disabilities? Well, we use the same guideline. If it is not relevant, we don't ask. But sometimes it is relevant because if they come and join our activities, we want to know what type of accommodations we need to provide, what kind of issues we need to be aware of. Then we will ask. But of course, it is, like they can choose to respond or to answer or not. But we will. But normally, when people coming in, they want to join our activities. Do we ask the first thing is okay? What's your disabilities? All these different things. we don't really, need to ask. So that is the same thing here. Ask question, but we need to be sensible about that when we ask questions. But to ask question is the effective way to know that, like showing that you have curiosity. You want to know more, but you want to do it in a more neutral way. You're not aggressive. Like you have to tell me that. How can I work with you if you don't tell me that?
It's all about building that relationship again, and how you would you start a conversation with anybody like you did earlier tonight. How do you get to know somebody, and then as opposed to what's your disability offhand, because it's a personal question, and you want to grow into that and get to know the person first in a more typical relationship.
I think the most important word here is respect, right? So you want to be respected and you need to show respect. And the next one is be clear and concise. So you be clear. If when you communicate, you want to be, if it is a conversation, a casual conversation in a party, you may just want to extend the words exchange, right? That is the idea, to kind of, oh, how's the weather? Yesterday's really hot. And then the day before yesterday is raining. You say all those, that's quite purposeless. You don't have a purpose to that. But when you want to communicate as a volunteer, if you're not doing the conversation, a casual one, you want to apply active listening, and then you want to give better support for the people you work with. You want to be clear about the purpose, the goals, and expectation. So sometimes when you speak to someone you support, you don't get the response from them. Why? Because maybe the word you use they don't understand. Maybe they don't know what you want. Right? Maybe so if you're clear here is when you come and I'm here to help you, to support you to do this art project. So here is for you to do it yourself as much as possible, and I am helping you to do the parts that you cannot do, or to bring you something. So this is very clear. You already put all the boundaries down. So it's not you're taking over everything and then do it, but they don't get, they're just watching you to do that. Or they sit there and wait for you to do everything for them. Then you say, okay, no, this person can do this. Why doesn't he do that? Right? So the expectation is very important. And avoid using words that, like this. Avoid using words that they don't understand. And this acronym thing is growing crazy in our world now. Everything is acronym. Right? So if you don't understand what that is, then what was that? You don't understand. You hear every alphabet set, but you don't know what they are.
Many years ago, I was on the board of directors for a nonprofit organization way back when, and I quit because all I heard was acronyms, and my brain couldn't keep up with what that acronym meant before they were on to the next one, and so it's really important in communication to not assume that your listener knows what that means, and we shouldn't take it for granted, for sure.
Yeah, and I have that problem with texting. People do a lot of those BTWLOL, whatever. So I just don't know what they are. Oh, and of course now it's quite common now, but in the beginning it is okay. Why? But now I'm also doing that myself because I'm lazy. TMR, I don't know. So be respectful and empathetic. So that is, again, we talk about this in the first presentation. What's the difference between, can an AI-powered robot be a volunteer? Yes, maybe for some roles, for some jobs. But will they make all-rounded a good volunteer in every case? May not be the case because they don't have this program in that. How do you program them to be respectful? Because respectful sometimes means you need to take different situations into consideration. When you are a robot program and with the data fed into you, the same thing go in, the same thing go out every time. It's consistent, but in human we don't do that. Sometimes we see people, doing one thing, we feel one way, and then another time we feel a different way. So kind of this is a different thing. So for that is sometimes we need to be respectful of other people, but saying that is, what is respect? Respectful normally is you want to portray your best to the people so that they value you. So it's a valuing here, being valued. So you value the person and you want to be valued. So you always put forward your best. You respect someone, you always want to put forward the best so that the person think, oh, you're also, like a good enough person. Because we want to look good in the eye of the people we respect. Okay? So this is very important. When we do that, when we talk about respect here, is the respectful is always with that. We, like we would say, we are very careful or whatever is. Respectful is whatever, like the value I treasure, and then I would have the same value for you. If I don't want to be interrupted when I'm talking, when you talk, I won't interrupt you. Right? Like kind of that is the difference, the thing about that, respectful of that. And then respect of the people's choice. That is the most important thing, especially in volunteering. And we respect people's choice. Sometimes their choice may seem absurd to us. So, like if we are supporting a senior having meals. The senior doesn't want to eat vegetables. Then you know that they need to eat vegetables because you need to have a complete diet. But can you open the senior's mouth and shovel the vegetable in? No. Can you say you must eat the vegetable, otherwise you are not getting the sweets? Sometimes you can bargain like that. It depends, right? Or would you want to think about, okay, let me think of how I can give vegetable to this person in a way that the person can accept. Maybe blend it up. Maybe make it into carrot cake and let them eat it. So kind of there are different ways. So you know that what would be, in your opinion, what would be good for them. And that would be something they really good for them. But they choose not to have it. Can you say, this is good for you, you must have it? You cannot do that. Be respectful of people's time, space, and resources. That is the same thing. And avoid making demands, assumptions, promises that cannot keep. So that is the part when we have conversation. We, with as a volunteer, we won't say anything just to make the person do the things you want to. So we don't make promises that you cannot keep. We don't promise them the moon, but it is not appropriate. So all these kind of, which would go back to the organization. You don't promise the person that the organization will do this and that for you. But do you know that? Probably you're not the person to say that. So then you're not, like making the right promise. And show respect, empathy by using appropriate language, gesture, and etiquette. Recognize the contribution of the ones you're serving. Okay, so that is basically based on respect.
You want to seek feedback. When I started here tonight, I wanted to say, can those of you at the back of the room hear me? And there's no point to my talking of those of you at the front of the back, not including everybody then. So it's the same thing when we're volunteering, same thing when we're being an employee. You want to know that what you're doing is working. And so you can seek community, seek it from the agency you're supporting, the individuals that you're supporting. Is it actually helping you? Or how can I do differently so that it is helping you even more or better? And again, that listening to the people's opinions and thoughts and concerns. And acknowledge mistakes. We've all made them. As volunteers, we've all made mistakes along the way, and sometimes we get in awkward positions. Let's start again. Let's see how I've learned from this, and let's start again and see if we can do differently. So you use that feedback that you're getting to be a better listener, to be a better volunteer, and to give more to the individual or the purpose that's in front of you that you're wanting to give to. So
Communicate effectively under pressure. Sometimes, under pressure means, you are in a situation you feel pressure or you're stressed. by that. You know, someone may come to you and ask you for something. They come to you and ask, hey, what is your phone number? And then they get very close to you, and then, you know, so what do you do? Right? So, you know, like, oh, that's my phone number. But, you know, like, as a volunteer, it's just we advise the volunteers not to disclose any personal information other than your name. Right? You know, like, not where you live or your phone number. We don't advise of email, and especially not social media accounts. You know, so we to do that. But sometimes you're put under pressure, you know, like, and then maybe the person is yelling at you, or the person is showing a tantrum. So what is the effective communicate, you know, skills to do this? So there are a few things, and we kind of here, that's pretty clear, so I won't go through every one of them. There's very simple stuff that you can use when you feel under pressure. Remember, silence is golden, and number one is no, don't need to say anything, then you don't say anything. Stalling is good, so okay, let me think about that. And then we'll talk about that next time, and then get some advice, right? Or, you know, pause to think, you know, let me think, that is okay, you know, you don't need to, it is not like you have to react or respond to it immediately. Make one point at a time, deliver your words clearly, wrap up with a summary, recognize that you are stressed. So that is also important, you know, a lot of the volunteers, they feel that they're obliged to bend over backward and to do everything that, you know, the people they support ask. Sometimes it is not. So that is actually under the role of volunteers, and if you don't know about that, you want to learn more about that, is when you join an organization to be their volunteers, they should have volunteer orientation, which we do, and then they talk all about this, right? That is the, you know, the basic, the things that you need to about volunteering is recognize you're becoming stressed. And then that is part of the self-care. And take time to calm down, bring your senses to rescue. So immediately, you know, don't get frustrated and then try, okay, this is quite a stressful situation. Realize that, and then I need to step backward, and then I say, okay, thank you very much, and then we'll talk about it next time, or let me think about it. So kind of that is the thing that mainly, you know, you can. So that is a lot of them is you need some self-reflection and then observation, and then you, from training, you get the skills and practice it in reality, real life. That's done.